So where do you want to start? Have you thought of anything?
Well, I don't know. BonnieJeanPowers. I was born November the 22nd, 1920. I'll be 91 years old in November 2011. Today is September the 10th. Well, when I was growing up, we didn't know what electricity was, nobody had it. We did have a telephone, one that you had to turn a crank to get the operator, get your number. We never had a car. We lived out in the country. I went to a little one-room schoolhouse where you had to turn a crank to get the operator. The operator would say, "Number, please," and you'd have to give her the number you wanted. And it was on a party line. Whenever you was talking to somebody else would be listening to you.
Like who would be on the party line? Who would have the same number?
They wouldn't have the same number. It'd be different rings. Ours was a long and 3 short rings for our phone. And everybody else had a different ring, but it was all on the same line.
Oh, so it was kind of like Morse code based.
Mm-hmm.
So if you heard long, short,
We know it's ours.
you were telling me about your first radio that you had.
Oh, yes. Our first radio, we didn't have electricity. It was run by a battery like it's in a car. And that thing didn't last very long. We always sent it to town to have it charged. But we thought we had something, and we had that radio.
What did you listen to on the radio?
Oh, we listened to soap operas was on. Prize fights, my dad always liked to listen to them. And country music. We'd have a house full of people come to listen to country music.
Relatives or friends? Or?
Some relatives and some just neighbors. But they'd all come in to hear the radio. The charge didn't last very long because we played it so much. We'd have to send it to town to have it recharged every little bit.
And how large would you say this radio is?
Oh, about 3 foot long and about a foot high maybe.
So it wasn't that portable.
No.
The entire town would come by.
No, not the town, it was out in the country.
Okay, so
His neighbors around would come in to hear it.
the local farm people,
Mm-hmm.
the immediate neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys farm?
Corn, tobacco, soybeans.
Did you have any livestock?
Yeah, we raised hogs to kill for meat. And we always had a cow, chickens.
Any family vacations or?
We never had a vacation.
That's kind of sad.
After we was married, we didn't go anywhere much. We'd go to Owensboro shopping. That was a vacation for us. Louisville, I guess. That's in Kentucky, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Chicago during World War II.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He was on leave, and he had to go back, and I went back with him for a few days.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So
Yeah, he was in the Navy.
why don't we start there? Why don't you tell me about whenever you first got married, how you first met your husband?
Well, he had a first cousin that was my girlfriend. We run around together. I met him through her. And we married, I was 16 and he was 17. Isn't that awful?
So you got married when you were 16.
16 and 17.
Mm-hmm.
That awful.
Where'd you get married at?
Got married in Hallsville. We didn't have a wedding. We just went to the preacher's house. That was October the 23rd, 1937. We was married 2 years when I had my first one. He died at 10 months. George Edward, named for my dad. And my mother always nicknamed everything. She called him Buzzy. He died at 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's 4 years before I had Bobby.
And do we know what he died of?
We all had the flu, and I think he had pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have hospitals, doctors.
Why don't you just tell us a little about grandfather, because obviously I've actually never met him. His name is Buster, was it? No.
Nickname was Buster. Clarence was his name. Everybody called him Buster or Shorty.
I didn't know that.
Well, he was in the Navy during World War II, and he come back home and got a job at Lehman's factory in Camden.
And what do they make?
They made high chairs and some other furniture. And then it burned about 45, I believe.
And where was Lehman's located roughly?
It was up, over the bridge in Camden, just up above the bridge. It's a big factory, employed a lot of people.
Let's take a step back. Do you remember his parents' names?
Yes, his parents was Esther and Clarence.
Do you remember Esther's maiden name?
Rice, Esther Rice.
Okay. And I've seen pictures of Esther. Mom and Susie joke about about looking like Esther.
Yeah, Darla looks like her. Esther's parents was Sam Rice and Maggie, I guess her name was. That was Esther's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And his parents was Jim and George Ann Powers.
How about your parents? What are their names?
George Black and Buick Clemens.
Mm-hmm. And why don't you tell us a little about Grandpa Black?
Well, he always worked hard. Tell City Chair Company. Dad worked there till he was 77 years old at Tell City Chair Company. And he retired. And he was pretty good for several years. Then he got that cancer.
And what type of cancer was that?
It was in his mouth. And he had surgery and he went along pretty good for a while. He lived to be almost 96 years old.
And
He died in December and he would have been 96 in February.
December of 1985?
I think.
What was the cause of that? He chewed tobacco?
Chewed tobacco. He didn't exactly chew it, he just held it in his mouth and it looked like had somebody the mumps. And that was where the cancer was at, where he got that tobacco. He tried to quit chewing tobacco and he'd smoke. Then he was burning holes in his clothes and everything. I don't know which was worse.
So he had a fourth of his tongue removed, right?
Mm-hmm. And part of his jawbone.
Let's see.
He couldn't get any teeth. His mouth was too messed up to get false teeth. I had to grind up everything he ate.
Let's talk about Buster for a second. Because I honestly know very little about Buster. I've seen a few pictures.
He died at 49.
His death was kind of traumatic for the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a little bit about what it was, but...
He loved to fish and hunt and all that kind of stuff. And he went to take my uncle home over in Kentucky. Said he's going to go down on the creek and turtle hunt. And he never come back. That was late on a Saturday evening. It was so hot. And he didn't come home that night, and they looked for him and didn't find him till about dinner time on Monday. And they thought he'd had a heart attack. There was a group of people going up the creek one way, and Kurt went down the other and found him. He smoked so much, about like Darla.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about Mom smoking all you want. That's the gist of that. Yeah. Don't worry about that. I'm not gonna take the tape and go rat you out to anybody. That's not the case.
Yeah, he smoked so much, and he didn't eat right. Didn't take any care of himself, and I'm sure it was a heart attack because he complained about his arms hurting and all before that.
Yeah, my grandfather Klaus. I think my dad believes he died of a stroke.
I remember when Darla and Larry got married, we went, all of us was there at the wedding, and your grandpa Klaus was worried he'd get that over because he'd want to go plant tobacco.
Proceed. Let's find out who these people are.
That's my Grandma Black. She died at 87. She died in 1941, I think.
She was 87 years old?
Mm-hmm. That's my dad's brother, Arthur Black, and his wife. And that's his first wife and baby.
And what happened to them?
They both died.
Do we know what of?
I don't know. They was living in the Philippines. I don't remember.
Let me see that. Oh, is she Filipino?
Mm-hmm.
And this is your...
That's his second wife.
Okay, and this is...
This is Dad's brother.
Okay, and this is the guy who eventually lived in Daly City.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
This is a picture, 5th generation, I guess. This is my grandma Black and her daughter, Lou Brandel, and her daughter, Carrie Boyles, and Martha Stewart and her daughter, Barbara.
Okay.
I've got their names all wrote down there beside it.
It's a good thing to do when you start doing that with our pictures.
This is my dad and mom, and this is Dad's sister and her husband. And this is my Uncle Arthur and his wife, and that's his picture of him. And that's a picture of him and his wife.
This is Uncle Arthur?
Mm-hmm.
Your Uncle Arthur,
Mm-hmm.
my great uncle.
Mm-hmm. And that's him. He lived to be 97.
Jeez, Powers has lived forever.
He's black.
Oh, so
This is a picture of my Grandpa Black's tombstone.
How old was he?
I don't know how old he's been dead. He died before I was ever born.
Oh, okay. It seems like the black side of the family.
They lived longer.
Just 90s and 80s all the way through.
This is Arthur again. As after he got older, he looked just like Dad when he's.
Let me see that picture again. Oh, that one's fine. That's a head-on shot. He really did. Like the same.
I had a friend.
Structure.
I had a friend that was going to California to visit her. Going to San Francisco to visit her daughter, and I told her if it wasn't too far out of the way to go to that nursing home where he was at, and she went and seen him and took a picture, and it looked just like Dad laying there.
And do you have that picture?
I've got it somewhere here.
So let's start with when you bought your house.
Our first house we had, he was in service, and I saved me up some money, and my dad gave me some ground. I had a house built, so when he come home, I had a house and had it furnished. And then later we sold it and got a house downtown where we could be closer to school for Bobby. My house cost $2,000.
The one you built?
Mm-hmm.
So
$2,000. It's a nice little house. Had 2 bedrooms, bath, living room, a kitchen, a basement. And I paid all I could on it, and when he come home, he had to pay $12 a month. That was a house payment.
And what year was this?
That was in 46, I believe.
Oh. So you guys had...
Kurt was he was almost a year old when Buster come home. He never had seen him. I had him while Buster was in service, and he didn't see him till he was almost a year old.
So, wow, that's kind of crazy to think of. I mean, it goes on today. You have servicemen in Iraq that, their wives have their child slightly after they ship out, and they're out for years. That's the interesting thing. But World War II, it's like, wow, what a crazy time. So, let's see. He was how old was he when he went to the war?
He was in the Navy on a ship. I don't know exactly what all he did. He was in Australia, Japan, Philippines, a lot of those places. We got a house down on Taylor Street to be closer to school. And it was a big house, and we rented an apartment upstairs to help pay for it. And then later we sold it and bought another house up close to where the bridge is now. And we sold that. Then we moved in my mom and dad's house. There on, you remember it, there on Taylor Street, that brick house. We lived there for 31 years. It wasn't such a nice house, but it was so handy for the kids for school. Bobby got her driver's license. She was so happy, and she wanted to drive to school. Of course, it's just down the street. She wanted to drive to school. One day she come home from dinner, and I said, well, where's the car? She forgot she had it. He walked home for lunch.
Of course, it's only like, it's less than a block, wasn't it?
Yeah, just a little over a block. We moved from there to Green Meadows. And then we was there about 10 years. And then Dad died, and I was there by myself, and I moved to High Rise.
You have a license, right? Or you had a license?
I had a license, I don't anymore. I stopped driving before Kenny was born. He was born in 1960. And I didn't have a car to drive. Buster always had it at work. I just lost interest in it. My driver's license come up and I didn't renew it. Now I wouldn't trust myself driving.
What were some of the big events in your life growing up?
Well, I went through the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover was president, and things were in an awful shape. We didn't have no money. My grandma drawed $40 a month pension, and everybody thought we was rich. Banks was closing, and just all kinds of bad things. If you wanted some meat, you'd go trade some potatoes to somebody for some meat, trade around and get stuff that way. And then Roosevelt was elected, and right away he started the WPA work and 3C camps and all that stuff, and got him out of it. He started Social Security too.
I know being put on the spot, and it's really hard to be like, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of my kids.
Darla mostly.
Darla, yeah. Darla's a little spitfire of the bunch. She always was.
Why don't you tell me some stories about her? We'll go through all the kids, not just Darla. But you can tell.
She'd come up with something just quick. She was just a little, about 4 or 5 years old, and had a new pair of shoes. She'd been sitting around and she hadn't worn them. And she sat down one day and was trying to get them on, and her grandma Esther come in. And she said, they're too little for you. That's what's the matter. They're just too little for you. I'd hate to be all feet. And Darla jumped up real quick and said, I'd rather be all feet than all mouth. She's always been a little spitfire. Yeah, we always had a good Christmas. We didn't have much money, but we managed. Got the kids all something. I'm believing Santa Claus to us old is pitiful. But growing up, I never had a Christmas tree or any Christmas decorations. Nothing. But they'd get me something. It wouldn't be wrapped like a present. It'd be hid somewhere. I'd have to find it.
What do you remember about Bobby that was funny, or where you thought, like, oh my God, or she got in trouble one time, or or...
No, Bobby never did get in trouble. She's always a good kid. But,
okay, well, let's go to Kurt.
yeah, Kurt was a different story. That's my dad and Kurt when he was a baby.
Wow, that's a young Grandpa Black to me, but he looks exactly like I remember him.
Mm-hmm. That's Dad, and that's my first baby that died. And this is my Grandma Black and my Grandma Clemens and my baby.
And his name was?
Called him Buzzy. His name was George Edward.
George Edward. I remember Edward as the middle name.
That's another one of Dad, and this one is Dad. These 3 little kids, I don't know who they are.
Do you know where it was taken?
No, I don't. They know. I think it might be some of Dad's sister's grandkids. That's our old house on Taylor Street. Dad must have had a birthday or Christmas or something. That's Dad when he was young. Man, that's a friend of his. I don't know who his name is, but that's Dad.
Huh.
There's a piece about my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
There's him and his wife again. I've got a lot of pictures of them. He was a lot younger then, too.
Mm-hmm. And that's his second wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was she also Filipino? Or
I don't think.
Okay. She looks, she doesn't look Asian in that photo, but in some of the older, when she's older, she looked more Asian.
Mm-hmm, she does.
Yeah.
I never did see her, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's him and her. That's me and my grandma Black when I was about 14.
Yeah. I look just like you.
Still look like me.
And that was probably in Hallsville, right?
No, that was out Brunner School neighborhood where we lived.
Okay.
Out to Pellville Road. There's a card from my uncle.
Dear, you want to just read it to us?
Dear Bonnie Jean, just a note to let you know that Anna and I will move to 1033 Southgate Avenue, Daly City, California. That is about 10 miles south of San Francisco. We expect to leave here on about May the 14th, 73. Anna and I are getting along fine, and we hope that you and your family are okay. Give our regards to George and Darla and her husband.
Is that my Darla?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
There's a letter he wrote, too.
That's nice handwriting, really.
Mm-hmm.
My handwriting looks like a psycho.
He can write real good.
What's that one say?
That's, I don't know. Enclosed is one of our pictures taken February the 16th, 1971, I guess. Our 43rd wedding anniversary.
Okay, well, let's go to Kurt.
He done well in school and all, and then he went to college, and then he kind of got to drinking and got kind of wild. And he got married.
And why don't you tell us about Kurt sleep driving?
Oh, yes. I forgot that one. He used to be bad about going sleep driving. But he always had somebody with him that'd holler at him, wake him up. But
Any funny stories about Mom?
oh, one time when she was little, Kurt and Bobby was always big, heavy, awkward kids, and they was always falling down, skinning their knees. And I got a first aid kit and had a cure comb, that red, I don't know whether they have it anymore or not, Band-Aids and a cure comb. And she sat in one day and she said, nothing ever is going to happen to me, so I can wear some of that stuff. Darla loved to roller skate when she was little. When we lived there on Taylor Street, she'd skate all the way up to the highway and back. Don't tell them how many times a day. She'd just skate and skate.
Why don't you tell me about the first time you met my dad, Larry Klaus?
Oh. He had burned his foot over at the factory. He come to the house, and I thought he's a kid selling something. And he's on crutches. He'd burned his foot and had been in the hospital. That's how Darla met him up here in the hospital. She was working up there, and he'd burned his foot with some hot aluminum. And he come to the house. And I went to the door, and I said, what do you want, or what are you selling, or something? I didn't know. And it was Larry.
So who does that bring us to? Kenny.
Susie.
Susie. Okay, we'll save Kenny. I'm sure there's you could talk for an hour about things he did.
Well, she stayed with Ms. Knapp, our next door neighbor, for a long time. Of course, she was right there at home, too. He's right next door to her. And
why was that?
They just spoiled her. And Carl was going to Louisville to see his mother, and one time, and Vernis told Susie, I'm going to be lonesome. You stay with me. And she went over there and stayed, and that started then. She stayed. She got out of high school. She never went to college or nothing. She got married, I don't know how many years after she got out of school. Not too many. Married Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived back of our house in the trailer when they first married. And then they sold that and had this house built in Tell City where they're at now.
No, they contracted that house to be built. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I know she come in with a blueprint. She'd seen the contractor and all. She She come showed it to me, and she said, Jim, better not tell me I can't have it.
That's pretty cool. I never knew they had that house built.
And they had it built. Been there a long time.
Yeah, as long as I can remember.
Julie was just a baby when they moved down there.
Could you just tell me a little about Miss Knapp? Because I really don't know much about her at all.
Well, not too much to tell. She was a good neighbor. Carl died. Her brother lived with him, died, and she didn't have nobody.
And Carl was her husband?
And she got to drinking pretty bad. And she got sick. She went to the hospital and had to go to the nursing home. She's out here at Beverly for several years. And then they transferred her to Ferdinand. That's where she died.
I think what I remember is her being out in Ferdinand.
She was there a good while.
Kenny.
Kenny. He was a character. We used to pull more pranks at school and all. A lot of them I didn't know till later.
Like what?
Well, the kids didn't have no air conditioning in the room, and the principal's office had air conditioning. So he slipped in and turned it off. Oh, he used to torment Esther, you know, his grandma lived there in a trailer in our yard. And you could easily unhook her television. He'd go run out, she'd be watching television, he'd unhook it, and she'd call me right away. Is your television out? Mine's not on. And Kenny'd go out there and say, Grandma, go in there and hit it real hard on top, and it'll come back on. And then he'd plug it up, and she'd call and say, it worked. It did come on. I know one time Esther'd always come over and say, I didn't sleep a wink last night. I just feel so bad. I didn't sleep a wink last night. I said, did you hear the fire truck go down the street? And, no, I didn't hear it. I said, I guess I must have dozed off. It went real loud down by our house, you know. She didn't hear it. I said, I thought you said you didn't sleep. I said, I guess I dozed off. And then the next day or two, she come over and Kenny said, Grandma, did you hear the fire truck last night? And she said, yeah, where was it? And there was none. He was just teasing her. Mr. Black, age 97, was born and reared in Hancock County, the son of James H. and George N. Longest Black. He was a retired Army officer, having served 47 years in the Army.
And what's this other photo album we're looking at?
This is my mom's side of the family.
Oh, it's nice you have it split up like that.
That's my great-grandpa and grandma Gaynor.
Hold on 1 second.
He's the one I told you about come from Ireland when he's 8 years old.
Gotcha. You want to tell me a little about him?
I don't really know anything much about him.
Well, you mentioned he probably stowed away on a boat.
He stowed away on a ship and come over here, and he had a brother in New York. And this is my great-grandma Gaynor.
That is an old photograph.
And that's my grandma Clemens' mother.
What's it say down the bottom of that photograph? The printed part on the side? Is that in German? What is that?
I can't see it.
Can't either. That says Calhoun, Indiana here, and good luck. Good luck. Okay. Is that like her senior photo?
I don't know what that is. This is all her 7 children. They're all gone now. And this is the 7 children in these 3 pictures. And this is my Uncle Owen Gaynor's wife and 3 kids, and that's cousin Mike Crowley.
So the Gaynors, can you just give us a little background on how the Gaynors like filter down into the Powers and into the Blacks? And so your mom,
my grandma Clemens was a Gaynor, and she married John Clemens, and my mom was a Clemens. And Esco, you remember Esco?
I do not. I've heard a lot of stories.
That's the old log house where I was born.
What year do you think that was taken? Just offhand.
It's what I took with the camera. It must have been, maybe in the 40s. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
That's pretty impressive.
That's Uncle Jim Gaynor, and that's Uncle Frank.
What's Uncle Jim doing?
Uncle Jim's been dead for a long time.
No, sorry, I meant
He's a brother to my Grandma Clemens.
Yeah, but in the picture, he's standing in like a flooded field.
Uh-huh.
Is that property that he owned, or?
It's backwater up above Counting.
Mm.
And that's Uncle Frank. That's an old picture.
Okay.
That's my Grandma Clemens. That's Gertrude Gaynor Ringers. That, I think, is my Uncle Owen. And this is him and his family.
And, is Owen a Gaynor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's my grandma's youngest brother. They lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota for years.
It's not like you've traveled the world, but surely you've been to some places.
I've been to Florida 3 times.
And the first time was?
Before Dad died, because Jeannie and Kenny come up and stayed with him. And he was mad because I went. He didn't want me to go. I went with Kurt and Bobby. Bobby bought a car and she won the trip to Florida. So we went that time. It rained all the time we was there. Then I went back another time with Susie and Jim. And Kurt and Kathy was there too, but they went in different cars. Then the next time I went to Florida, me and Bobby went to Louisville and flew to Miami, Florida, and we was there a little while and got on a cruise ship and went to the Bahamas. That's about the end of my traveling.
Whenever you went.
It's after Dad died, and he died in 84 or 5.
Hmm.
I know he told me all the time, don't you never let one of these kids talk you on getting on no airplane. But after he died, me and Bobby did. That's the only time I've ever flown, though.
Did you like it?
Mm-hmm. Nice way. You don't have time to get tired.
Were you?
Nice way to travel if you have to go somewhere. We had to change planes in Atlanta, and I've never walked so much in my life. That's a big airport. Well, you've been there.
Several times.
Well, we was on a cruise ship. There was a lot to do on the ship, and then we got out.
To the nude beach?
We went, no. They had more little houses, and it was all painted pink. There's common houses, and it's all painted pink. But they had a nice big building, and that was a gambling casino. We didn't gamble. We went and looked. We went to some Freeport, I think it was, one of the islands we went to before we got to the Bahamas. I forget how many days. I think it was 5 or 6 days, maybe. They're nice. They really feed you. They provide so much food I never seen the like. But there wasn't too much for us to do. There was a lot of gambling places. We had a good time. Bobby, anywhere she goes, she meets somebody she knows. She met a couple on the ship that was from Tell City.
Really?
Mm-hmm. There's connected to this commercial filters plant. Bobby got talking to him, found out that it's from Tell City.
Hmm. Have you ever had a job? Other than, mother and caretaker?
No, I worked in the dime store through Christmas one time. It's all the work I've ever done outside the home.
And which dime store was that?
It was Ben Franklin in Canton. It's not there anymore.
And when was that you worked? Roughly year-wise?
Must have been about 54, 55 maybe.
Whenever Buster was off at war, were you ever really scared that something had happened to him, or was it constant, or?
Yeah, you never know. We went for a long time. We didn't hear anything from him. He'd write, They didn't have all this like they do now, where they can see him and all. And we went for, I don't know, about 3 weeks. We didn't hear anything. Then he finally wrote. He was all right. Buster come home from the service. He'd seen a television somewhere. And he come in and was telling us about seeing it. Nobody had any then. And his mom said, I'll believe that when I see it. She didn't believe him. And then several years after that, televisions come around. We got one. It was all black and white and snowy as could be, but we watched it anyway. First one I ever seen was my cousin had one, Frank Gainer. We lived up on the hill in Counseling. You got a good picture up there. We went up there and watched it. Then we got one.
And do you remember like how much it was, or?
Probably $300 or $400, I imagine.
You lived through Kennedy assassination.
He was killed on my birthday.
How did you find out about the Kennedy assassination? How did the society around you react?
I remember Buster was sitting in the living room, and I was in the kitchen down to our old house, and he hollered, "Come here!" And they just had told it, and he just seen him just before that in that car on TV. He just seen it.
On the way back.
There's letters that I'd got from them. This is one to my grandma from somebody. Look at the stamps. That's my mother when she was young. Look at that big bow in her hair. That's Dad when he was young.
Well, let me see that picture then. What age do you think he is there?
I imagine he was 20, 25.
Wow,
maybe.
man.
That's him. Later years.
He's a good-looking guy.
He was fat then.
Oh, yeah, right. Weighed all, what, 160?
I used to think Dad was so good-looking when I was a little kid.
He was.
He had real black hair.
Yeah.
Black wavy hair. That's Theodora Gaynor Jackson. She married. She's dead, too.
Mm.
That's a thing. That's place have these little booklets at the funeral home like they have now.
Mm-hmm.
They had a card like that. That's for my Grandpa Clemens' funeral.
At some point, I would love to borrow this book when I know I'm coming back, like the next weekend.
Anytime.
So that we can scan some of these in. Because it'd be nice to make copies of these for the family.
Here's where I lived the most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Brunner Schoolhouse neighborhood. Schoolhouse is right across the road from that house.
So that was your second house that you lived in.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's the one you took a picture with in the 40s. That was your first house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was where you were born, and this one is in it.
Here's a picture of my school class. That's that one-room schoolhouse where I went. You can't see it much.
Yeah, which one are you? Sorry.
Right there. That's Flora Harden.
Oh, so you were this is when you were what, a senior or?
No, I just went to the 8th grade. I think I was in 8th grade there. Most all these kids are gone. Most every one of them. I think that's Kathleen Jackson. I think she's still living. But all these are gone. And I'm still here.
How far did you go in school?
I quit when I was a freshman in high school.
And the reasoning behind that?
Well, we lived way out in the country. I had to walk 3 or 4 miles, and the road was bad. They didn't have no school buses or nothing. I just got disgusted and quit. Been sorry of it ever since.
I think you've had a pretty awesome life so far.
If I had to do it over, I wouldn't have got married so young. I'd have got me education. Put off getting married till I was old enough to know what I was doing.
We left off at the moon landing.
A lot of them thought they was wasting a lot of money. It wouldn't amount to anything. And some of them didn't believe it hardly. It's hard to believe that they was really on the moon. I saw one of the astronauts was going up, saw it explode. It's on television. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we were watching it on TV as well. My kindergarten class, they wheeled a TV in so we could all watch it, and the thing blew up. And at the time, it was like chaos.
We was in Florida when one went up. We drove out there, and you could see it on the launch pad, and they didn't take off on account of the weather or something, and then the next day they did.
What part of your life do you think, oh, this was the greatest part?
I guess when my kids were little, I enjoyed them. When they'd come home to report cards and have good grades, they'd be so happy. Or Christmas time, they'd all be happy for Christmas presents. Seeing your kids grow up and do well.
And what about being a grandparent?
Well, that's still better. Like I tell Susie, she's just grandma and I'm great. I've got 9. You and Jerry.
Yeah.
And Philip and Kim. And Eric and Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Chris and Julie and Jenna. Got 9.
And then David.
And David.
That passed away early on in my life. What's the earliest memory you can think of?
I guess I was about 3 or 4. My grandma Clemens lived with us. My mother was always sick. She stayed with us. I was about 3 or 4 years old, I guess. And one time, I had a pup, just a cute little pup and playful. It bit me on the hand, and they always said, you get rabies from that if you don't kill the dog. And my grandma put it in a sack and let it down the well and drowned it. I won't forget that.
Well, I gotta say that's kind of a bummer. I gotta tell you, I think you win the Sad Story Award today.
As a superstition, there wasn't nothing to it. You had to kill the dog.
I bet there's a lot of superstition going on in that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. What? Now that you're 91, I know for me it's a loaded question again. It's really hard to answer. Like, what do you feel is the most important thing you've ever learned?
I think your faith in God is about the most important. I belong to Seventh Street Baptist for years. I don't know how long. I don't go anymore because I'm not able to get out much, but they come see me about every month. They have a sermon on the radio every Sunday morning at 7:30. I always listen to that. My cousin started the 7th Street Church, Kearney Black. He built that church.
What do you feel is like the one thing you would want to teach your children?
Never get mixed up in drugs or drink. Get the best education you can. But money's not everything. Being happy is the most important.
What are some of your like daily concerns?
More concerned about my health than I used to be. And
How so?
because I'm older and have more ailments. But other than that, I don't know of anything. Yeah, I've got a will. I've got a living will. That's if you go to the hospital and they have you hooked up and there's no change, they cannot hook you. I've got that. I've got my cemetery plot and tombstone already. Pay somebody to cry is all I have to do.
And where? I think you're pretty popular. Where's your plot located?
Over at Hallsville on the hill.
So back where you're originally from.
Mm-hmm.
And why did you choose that area?
Well, my first baby was buried there, and when Buster died, that's when I got the tombstone and everything.
Oh, so yeah.
$12 and a half I paid for the plot, and it's for 4 graves. 1940.
Tell me a little about your life now.
I've got a good life here. Everything is so convenient. It's so much cheaper on me to live here. And they have some kind of entertainment all the time. Bingo games, suppers. Once a month we have a pitch-in supper. And I work on the arts and crafts stuff.
What do you make?
Enjoy that. We make jewelry. We make placemats and Christmas ornaments. A lot of different things. First thing I do is get up and read my paper, make my bed and have my breakfast. go down and get my mail, go down at 11:30 and eat dinner, lunch. I go down and play bingo sometimes. The nursing homes all come in and have bingos, and that's free. They give you all kinds of goodies.
What do you guys win?
Oh, it's all something useful, like dishwashing, soap, or cookies, or I won a $10 gift certificate from Walgreens. We don't have a Walgreens here. I have to use it sometimes to go to Owensboro.
Mm-hmm.
But several nursing homes come in all the time. That's something to do.
What's on your mind nowadays?
Think about how much longer I'm going to be here.
And that's, yeah. I mean, that's a legitimate concern?
No, I'm not. I don't worry about it. On Sundays, the kids, several of them come in, not all at the same time. I usually cook dinner. See them all. And I enjoy going. I go with Bobby to Evansville and Owensboro, sometimes shopping. That's about the limit of my traveling. But I enjoy it. I got on the elevator one day and I knew Eileen, her sister. I wasn't paying any attention to who was on there. Eileen said, "I want you to meet my sister." And I looked up this tall, dark-headed woman. I said, "Hello." And she said, "No." And I was standing right in front of her. She's so little I hadn't even noticed her. It was Florence.
Let's talk about me.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
What's your first memory of me?
You was a little baby, little tiny when I first met you. I used to keep you once in a while, and you wouldn't let me change your diaper. You'd fight like a little tiger.
Still will.
Yeah, he was a cute little kid. Smart. He always have been so smart. I remember when you moved to Tell City and they had computers that count, and they was always calling you to see something about the computers. You remember that?
I've heard about my adoption from like my parents' perspective. Let's hear about it from your perspective.
Kind of took us all by surprise. We was getting ready for a wedding, and this come about. They went and got you Jerry. And that was Kenny's wedding, I guess. And I saw you just right after they got you at the house.
And I was really cute.
You was really cute and really little. And
about how big?
You looked like you might have weighed maybe 10 pounds. You was like a newborn. But you'd been sick. You was about 3 months old, but you'd been sick, had pneumonia, been in the hospital. And Jerry, he didn't know what to make of it. He didn't know any of us. I think he had a hard time adjusting. But he's a good little kid, too. I remember Darla telling him when they went over there to get you all that the mother was there. And Jerry cried. He didn't want to go. And said she slung him in the car and slammed the door and said, "Go on, I don't want you." How could anybody do that? I've never seen her, but I did see him.
Mm-hmm. When did you meet him?
When Jerry was living in an apartment that Bobby had up there, and he kind of got in trouble. And he was going to move him to Owensboro. He moved him over there and put him in a trailer and got him a job. He don't look like you or Jay or either one. He was kind of short and stocky. Of course, that's been a long time on what he looks like now. But he looked like either one of you. I remember you and Jerry, I had a magnifying glass. And you used to love to get that and get out and start a fire. You could hold it a certain way, start a fire and leaves with it. I remember you was in a play at high school, and Angela was too, I think, and I didn't know her at the time. But you was real good in that play. You remember?
I do. Thank you.
I think I've got the program here yet, somewhere. Some of the girls was talking. I said something about Jerry, or Jamie, and "You're Jamie's grandpa?" It was all excited. You was popular.
Still am. What was your decision to sell your house and your house in Green Meadows and move here?
Well, I was up there by myself, and I didn't drive, and it was unhandy. And Bobby was already working here, and she'd bring me down to suppers or something they was having to do, and she'd end up showing me an apartment. She never did tell me she wanted me to move here, but I knew she did. And I'm a lot better off here. I'd get groceries delivered one day a week, every Thursday. And I'd call my order in. I'd always forget something.
When you were little, what did you always want to be growing up?
I wanted to be a school teacher. I used to help they had just one-room schoolhouse, and they had from the first grade to the 8th and only one teacher. And the teacher would get me to help the littler ones. And I thought I was doing something.
What do you think of the most nowadays?
The days seem like they're so short to me. They go by. I get up and do a little housework. It's time to go down and eat lunch. Then after dinner, there's something to do, bingos or Bible study or something to do, crafts and stuff. Thinking about the kids, what they're doing, where they're at.
You said getting married early. And why do you feel that was a mistake?
I was too young. I should have been more grown up, and he should have been too. And I should have got an education, been able to make some money, wouldn't been so poor.
So a couple of people work for Telsey Chair Company. One was Grandpa Black. Was the other Buster?
Mm-hmm.
Who did he get a job there because of Grandpa Black? Or did he?
Yeah, I think he did. They was both working at Lehman's when it burned, and Dad right away they called him Tell City Chair Company. And then Buster didn't get on there till later. I think Dad helped him get on. They made some pretty furniture there. I could have had a house full of it. I didn't like it then, now I like it. And it goes so high because they're not making it anymore. These auctions and places, it goes so high. Bobby bought me the table. Dad bought me the chairs, 6 chairs. Hutch's Tell City Chair, Miss Lamb, and these tables over here.
I had no idea how much Tell City Chair Company stuff you had.
Bobby bought a little, I guess you call it a little hutch, about that big, about that high. And a big mirror goes with it the other day. $500 and some odd. It's pretty, but oh man, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. What later on in life, what are some of the things that you feel that you could have done better, or that you did and regret?
Glad I could take care of my dad. He never wanted to go to a nursing home or nothing. I took care of him, and he didn't have to. He was in the hospital, I think, maybe a week when he died.
What was official that he died of?
He had a blood clot in his lung, and the doctor said if he give him anything to dissolve that blood clot, he would go to bleeding. He had that cancer back in his mouth. He'd go to bleeding from that. Said his hands were tied. He couldn't do anything. I've seen a lot of disasters. Pearl Harbor, I lived through that. That's when we went to war.
What about here in the county?
The 37th flood was bad. That's the worst we've ever had. We didn't have any flood walls then. And we lived out in the country over in Hallsville. We walked to town, went up on the hill, you could see houses and stuff floating down the river. It was the worst water we've ever had. I guess the flood wall with all the paintings on it is pretty.
Counts inside of Tell City side?
Tell City.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Julie's. Had breakfast there this morning.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Who's your favorite singer?
Don't really have a favorite, I guess.
Lawrence Welk?
Yeah, I like Lawrence Welk. He don't sing. George Beverly Shade, you ever hear him sing?
No.
He used to sing with Billy Graham, Crusade.
Right.
And he's a good singer. Bonnie Jean Powers. I was born November the 22nd, 1920.